President, Madame Elaine has delivered the lecture already. So what I'm going to do is to look at corporate governance from another point of view. But before I go on, let me say that I just received 2 messages on my WhatsApp. One is from a road safety advocate. And he says, it's sad. This morning as I journeyed to Accra, I kept asking myself, why all this indiscipline? What are those paid from our taxes and mandated to enforce the laws? Almost all bus stops have been turned to taxi ranks. Trotros have to park in the middle of the road to alight and pick passengers. Talk about Novotel, licensing office, rage, and what have you. These agencies are really pathetically disappointing. The police personnel tasked to ensure discipline at the Metro bus station are rather brazenly interested in lining their respective pockets at the expense of road safety. Fancy the Okada station staring the police in the face right in front of their regional headquarters in June. Ghana is fast becoming a banana republic. The second text message came from my former secondary school, and it's not from the headmaster, it's from one of the teachers, who is saying that because of the new system that we have introduced, the double track and all, our common rooms in all the houses are being turned into dormitories. Ladies and gentlemen, Donald, before your, before you prayed, you asked us to close our eyes. And I was wondering what the difference would be if we didn't close our eyes. Then it reminded me of a book written by Kojo Yankah, first president of Kenya, Facing Mount Kenya, the title of the book. And somewhere he said, when the white men arrived, we had the land and they had the Bible. By the time we opened our eyes, we had the Bibles, they had the land. So I'm very suspicious of those who always want us to close our eyes. Let me introduce a very good friend of mine who's arrived from the US and has decided to join us. This is Professor Kojo Richardson. He's a professor, a retired professor in the University in California. Anyway, the Institute of Public Relations Ghana could not have chosen a better theme than the interrogation of values in present-day Ghana and, if I may say so, Africa. Families are breaking down because of conflicting values. Companies are collapsing because of a number of reasons that we continue reading in the news media. Directors and managers of organizations are reported to be violating their own personal and company values and causing irreparable damage to their own reputations and that of their organizations. Employees are sitting on tentacles because they are anxious about their own future. At the national level, questions are being asked about the integrity of institutions that are supposed to regulate and guide national governance. I believe that all the banks and other operational bodies have on their books, and sometimes imprinted on their walls beautifully crafted vision and mission statements. Public relations practitioners must be confused about what strategies to adopt to respond to this national crisis. Then we have the other crisis in our body politic. Parties that we have in Ghana also have well-designed manifestos which are sold to the people to canvass for votes to come to power. These manifestos are normally not read in full by voters, and that is if they can read at all. But what people remember are the promises ingrained in campaign messages. Some questions will continue to agitate the minds of observers. And I must quickly add that similar questions are being asked in other African countries. How do people survive on their meager salaries? Who buys 3-bedroom houses for $1 million US in a country which has only a few known billionaires? What has become so attractive for young people without any working experience to want to own expensive cars and houses? Why is there so much confusion in our social services, particularly in health, education, sanitation, agriculture? What makes it necessary for citizens in some parts of Ghana to hold placards on the streets before political actors react to their woes? Why do governments refuse to continue with projects initiated by previous governments? Do we really care about the national ethos? No matter the answers one records for these questions, which are on people's hearts, I'd want to suggest that our value system has broken down. We are living in borrowed times. Greed, selfishness, and abandonment of our indigenous traditional values have contributed to the current crisis. Founders of our dear nation, Ghana, respected and recognized our traditional culture and values. Same founders saw the need to integrate our fortunes with the rest of Africa because they foresaw that if we went alone, we would be crushed by more powerful forces. Today, our leaders, and majority of African leaders, are fighting for their own personal survival and are not prepared to surrender any part of their country's sovereignty to guarantee collective self-reliance. We are actively competing amongst ourselves on the continent of Africa. We are proud to say we belong to sub-Saharan Africa, as if there is a reward for us somewhere. Now we are looking over our shoulders to see whether another religion is overtaking ours, while some superpowers are strategically planning how to recolonize our continent. Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen, there is an Akan proverb that is popular with me that I like sharing. It says, "You cannot laugh with somebody else's teeth." Either as Ghanaians or as Africans, we are living with borrowed identities. And once you borrowed it, it's not yours. A quick study of the strength of major powers like America, Europe, China, India, reveals clearly that their history, geographical circumstances, constitution, philosophies, cultures, and way of life have defined who they are and the confidence they exude. It is probably out of sense of humor for African leaders to boast that they will build their nations on the principles of these advanced nations. Some travel and come back and say, we want to build our country like Singapore. No. Singapore has different values. We are dealing with nations whose survival is premised on traditional values of their own people. Let me use the example of China, that industrialized nation. With a population of some 1.3 billion and more, this nation has been united by philosophy, borrowing mainly from the thoughts of Confucius. More or less, they are traditional philosopher. In an article I read elsewhere, a lady, Zhang Lihua, who was resident scholar of Carnegie Tsinghua Center for Global Policy, explains that traditional cultural values that influence the psyche of the Chinese people are harmony, benevolence, righteousness, courtesy, wisdom, honesty, loyalty, and filial piety. Of these, she says, the core value is harmony. Harmony means proper and balanced coordination between things and encompasses rationale, propriety, and compatibility. She argues that modern Chinese society tries to maintain harmony between humankind and nature, between people and society, between members of different communities, and between mind and body. That's why, in spite of the ideology of communism, the country still holds together. Benevolence, the core value of Confucianism, extends from the importance of familial ties and blood connections and is held very high in high esteem by the Chinese. A peaceful family will prosper. A peaceful family will prosper is a famous and widely embraced saying in China. This benevolence, although based in familial ties, extends to friendships and social relationships, producing a full set of values that include justice, courtesy, wisdom, honesty, loyalty, self-discipline, and commitment. This writer quotes Confucius to explain the source of the value of righteousness. And I quote, "The gentleman understands what is moral. The small man understands what is profitable." Deep thoughts. There are not only individual benefits, but also collective and social benefits for the people of China. All people should seek what benefits both the individual and the society. As two Chinese sayings put it, everybody is responsible for the rise and fall of the country. Listen to that. Everybody is responsible for the rise and fall of the country. And then the second one is, be the first to show concern and the last to enjoy yourself. So they think communally, together, in spite of differences, in spite of the social status. If the country suffers foreign invasions and perils, the people should, quote, expel the foreign invaders and resuscitate the Chinese nation. For the Chinese, wisdom requires that one distinguish right from wrong. Wisdom means to understand. Hence the great saying from Confucius, one must have a loving heart to love others, and one must have wisdom to understand others. Despite the variety and diversity of human and natural resources, the people of China are withstanding other cultural and political influences and are focused on their national goals. Traditional Chinese medicine has been cherished and surviving over 5,000 years. What has happened to our traditional medicine, which held our fathers and forefathers together? Today we chase away our own traditional medicines and welcome the tramadors. On March 15, 2017, I published an article in the Daily Graphic under the title, "Our Thought Base is Faulty." I was motivated by a speech delivered by a school prefect the previous weekend at a speech and prize giving day in Cape Coast. The prefect waxed eloquent, quoting from a former British Prime Minister and another from a former American president. I think he wanted to impress the guests. I noted in my article that those foreign leaders whom he quoted were not talking to Africans. They were espousing ideas from their own cultural milieu, from their own history, geography, and values. That is not to denigrate any foreign values or ideas. What I noted in my article, which I later reproduced in my book, Our Motherland, is that throughout my travels and studies around the world, I have not come across any non-African philosopher, public speaker, political leader, PR practitioner, or student quoting positively from an African. Never. Europeans, Americans, and the rest of the world are proud of and comfortable with their historical and cultural environment and milieu. My submission was that it is the original and indigenous ideas of a people that can build a nation they can be proud of. Again, in my book that I referred to, I quoted part of a book authored by Right Reverend Peter Akwesi Sapon. If you don't know him, you probably don't know the Catholic Church in Ghana. The book is entitled Libation. And I think all of you, particularly students, should go and look for it. Here, the venerable theologian and anthropologist defines the Supreme Being as, quote, the creator of the world and of human beings, and the final authority in all matters, which idea is native to Ghanaians and all Africans. He quotes the African proverb, "No one teaches the baby who God is." In Akan, Obi nkyerɛ abofra nyame. It's there. Africans knew God before the white man came with the Bible. It is a fact. Specifically on libation, the Archbishop emphasizes that, and I quote, libation has been part of the tradition of Akans from time immemorial. It is integral to the Akan heritage. Christianity has not come to condemn, Christianity comes to fulfill. Therefore, Christianity cannot denounce a cultural institution. To abolish an innocuous old practice like libation is to destroy the philosophy of the life of the people and their very ethos, says Archbishop Sapon. Probably because it's Archbishop, you believe him better than if I said it myself. Fellow Ghanaians, there is clear evidence that Africans have a deep sense of religion. Call it spirituality, whatever. Whether with traditional African religion, Christianity, or Islam, Africans attach a unique and continuing moral and spiritual significance to the individual as a person. Do you doubt why our women particularly, and the women should forgive me, why they jump into a dancing mood wherever they are when gospel songs are played? It is African. Non-Africans don't get the rhythm. Have you noticed it? It's the African. The African is highly religious. Religion permeates every aspect of African society. Even before the advent of Christianity and Islam, Africans held firmly the traditional African religion to the extent that the devotee named their children after deities. African social values rest on moral values, which in turn rest on religious values. Moral values and religious values are inseparable because religion promotes moral excellence. What we call the West treats religious issues separately from the moral issues. And that is the reason why the spiritual element runs deep in the personal and interpersonal value system in Africa. What Christianity and Islam and other religions have done is to reinforce African moral values. Read the 7 Commandments. They were all values in our system before the Bible was written. The impression has been created that Africans did not know God before Western civilization came to Africa. That is false. If anything, we have allowed Western civilization and religion to divide us. Our communalistic way of living was replaced with individualism, which saw families being divided along born-again and non-born-again lines. Even today, some born-again Christians see their own biological relations and close friends who are not born again as children of Satan. Fellow Africans, in this presentation this evening, I'm arguing that our current underdeveloped situation, which has derailed our efforts to develop as a confident people, is largely due to the abandonment of our indigenous cultural values and the pollution of our thought base with foreign values. And that we can regain our pride and confidence as a people if we integrate and practice our indigenous values in our individual, family, corporate, and national policies and governance systems. So what are values? They are defined as principles or standards of behavior. They are important and lasting beliefs or ideals shared by members of a culture about what is good or bad, about what is desirable and non-desirable. They serve as broad guidelines in individual, corporate, and national behavior. Out of the values emerges a vision which outlines the collective aspirations and goals of a people, and then a mission statement, for those of you in PR, which maps out the process of attaining the goals. The vision of any leader, whether of a family, company, or nation, must therefore be underpinned by the values, principles, ideals, and standards of behavior of the people. And that explains why at independence on 6th March 1957, our founders articulated our aspirations in anthems, songs, policies, and statements that would separate us from our colonial past. For example, instead of continuing to sing the previous anthem, God Save the Queen, we were taught to sing Lift High the Flag of Ghana. Then later to become God Save Our Homeland, Ghana. Look at the difference. God Save the Queen, right? Which we sang for how many years? We changed it to Lift High the Flag of Ghana, and later, God Save Our Homeland, Ghana. Have you really thought deeply about the symbolic and real meaning of those two anthems. Now listen to these words. God bless our homeland Ghana and make our nation great and strong, bold to defend forever the cause of freedom and of rights. Freedom and of rights. Fill our hearts with true humility. Make us cherish fearless honesty, and help us to resist oppressors' rule with all our will and might forevermore. Keywords: bold to defend the cause of freedom and of right, with true humility and fearless honesty. Let's think about these words. Do we just recite them because we are forced to recite them, or we recite them with passion and meaning, something that means something to us? I doubt very much. Now listen to the third stanza. It's unfortunate we don't sing this song. Sometimes you can check from government officials when they are playing, I just mumble the words and swallow them. And what about the rest of the people? Now the third stanza of the national anthem is interesting for me. We really know that. It says, raise high the flag of Ghana, and one with Africa advance. Black star of hope and honor to all who thirst for liberty. Where the banner of Ghana freely flies, may the way to freedom truly lie. Arise, arise, O sons of Ghana, and under God march on forevermore. Keywords: one with Africa. Now we want to advance alone, right? Arise, O sons of Ghana. The sons of Ghana are now going for prayers. Under God, march on forevermore. All night. Now, we had the legendary Ephraim Amo, the musical icon, composer, who rallied Ghana and Africa with his pregnant words of wisdom in his songs, notably Yanum Ebibirima and Yeng Ara Asasini. I requested for this song. Do you have Yanum Ebibirima somewhere? Me? Have you abandoned me? Now, these were words written by somebody from the Volta region who was able to write in Twi, in Akan, and almost all languages in Ghana picked it up. Yanum Ebibirima is a rallying call to all Africans, the black race, to rise up, to develop their God-given land. And it was virtually saying all the other nations have left us behind. And he wrote this in the 1920s, far ahead, even before independence. But after independence, it became very popular. Now, the other one was Yeng Ara Asasini, that everybody is supposed to know how to sing. This is our own native land, Yeng Ara Asasini. I think I'm hearing something. Sorry, we don't have the sound here, so we'll continue. This is our own native land. What a priceless heritage, acquired with the blood our ancestors shed for us. It is now our turn to continue what our ancestors started. The know-it-all behavior, cheating, and selfishness has scarred our character and diminished our love for our land. Bragging of educational achievements or useless greed for material things and bad lifestyles are destroying our nation and disgracing it. Whether or not this nation prospers clearly depends on the character of the citizens of the nation. Deep words. I think AUCC should have this as the national anthem. Know the values left for us by the national anthem and Amos' wisdom. We aspire to freedom and of rights. We need to preserve our heritage and build upon it. We need to lift high our flag in unity and build a great and strong nation. We must advance one with Africa. We must exhibit true humility, cherish fearless honesty, eschew greed, selfishness, and know-it-all attitude. Fellow Ghanaians, do we merely recite or mouth these words, or we really mean them when we sing the song? I believe it is time we made it compulsory for all Ghanaians to sing these two songs with the passion and commitment desired. Have you ever seen the French people singing their national anthem? They sing like they are going to war. Allons enfants de la patrie. Let me say a few things about Yoruba proverbs. In an article published in an international journal I came across the other day, go ahead. Now, who is teasing us? In an article published in an international journal I came across the other day, entitled Proverbs, Values, and the Development Question in Contemporary Africa, a case study of Yoruba proverbs. 3 scholars, Adeyemi Johnson Ademowo, Noah Opeyemi Balogun of the Department of General Studies of University Ado-Ekiti, Ekiti State, argue extensively that underdevelopment of Africa manifests in ethnic religious violence, political unrest, lack of moral value, lack of visionary leadership, and wanton poverty. While some scholars have blamed the woes of Africa on colonialism, that is, if you read Walter Rodney's How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, others have blamed it on leadership and followership. I agree with the position of these two scholars that culture and language are so intertwined in such a way that the death of language automatically marks the death of a culture that such language carried. Today, educated Ghanaians and Africans are shy of their local language. We can't read, we cannot write. And we are proud to sing lullabies in English to our children. Therefore, it is appropriate to conclude that there is a need for a radical revival of the indigenous language. If you don't know your language, sorry, you've lost it. Language has its strong metaphorical uses, which include proverbs, which are supposedly endowed with the survival instinct and value of the people. I'm wondering, maybe we should bring local languages into universities. Seriously. I read and passed Fanti in secondary school. So I'm proud to read it and speak it. Now let's talk about the proverb. Now talking about Yoruba proverbs. Proverbs are the simple truths of life that contain the ethical, moral values of a society. Aside the aesthetic and figurative value in proverbs, it represents a graphic statement that expresses the truth of experience. What it says is readily perceived and accepted as an incontrovertible truth. The proverb is often an empirical fact based upon and derived from the people's experience of life, human relationship, and interaction with the world of nature. As scholars like Adeyemi have noted, proverbs remain from time immemorial until today a very powerful and effective instrument for the transmission of culture, philosophy, social morality, and values in the sensibility of the people. In essence, their values do not lie only in what they reveal of the thoughts of the people. Proverbs make people behave according to norms and mores of the land. Now, let's listen to a few Yoruba proverbs. On reproach and punishment, there's this proverb: he who does not have a mother must not nurse a wound on his back. Listen again. He who does not have a mother must not nurse a wound on his back. Who will heal your wound at the back, particularly if you are not married? We should not bite more than we can chew, and that we should be careful at all instances and be meticulous about our choices. Another proverb: what is befitting must be adorned. It is not appropriate to use chain for a hen. It's a Yoruba proverb. It is not appropriate to use chain for a hen. Who has ever used a chain for a hen? The implication here is that we must endeavor to take cognizance of the social expectations and values that others lay on us. The other one: the house built of saliva instead of water would be blown away by mere morning dew. What this translates into is that we should endeavor to make success through legitimate means. Ill-gotten wealth would always not last, and thus we should be wary of success attained via these means. This is deep, right? The house built of saliva instead of water would be blown away by mere morning dew. The last proverb, Yoruba proverb I will quote is: work is the curative medicine for poverty. Hand is one's family. Arm is one's support. It is wise to get hardworking. Of course, this advises us to be hardworking and be self-reliant instead of looking for shortcuts and corners. We cannot underestimate the interconnectedness of culture, language, and development. Ghanaian philosopher William Abraham in 1963 wrote a book in which he argued that culture functions as a catalyst for development in these distinct ways. One, as a means of creating order. B, as an instrument of the achievement of social integration. C, to make events in human experience intelligible and significant. And 4, as a regulator of change. What becomes obvious to us, therefore, is that it is Africa's inability to come to terms with these intricate cultural and historical elements that has contributed immensely to rendering her development quest a futile exercise. It is without doubt that no continent can develop without its cultural values, which are the essential ingredients for development. At some point, I wanted to understand the people of Zimbabwe. It was difficult for us at this end of Africa to understand why, in spite of all the negative image that the media gave of Zimbabwe, they were still surviving. Then I searched for Shona proverb. Shona is the greater part of Zimbabwe. And I learned some Shona proverbs. One is, meat cannot be taken away from two dogs. And two, a single thump does not kill a louse. The third one, a single male person, no matter how big, does not surround an anthill alone. The above proverbs are reflective of the binding philosophy of the Shona people. An individual views his position in relation to the aspirations of the community. A fragmented stance subverts the possibility of positive participation and contribution. That is to say, every member is connected to the society. The individual can only say, I am, because we are. And since we are, therefore I am. The traditional Shona society celebrates connectedness and cohesion. That's why, in spite of all their difficulties, they were held in each other's hands. Another proverb says, men are all the same. And listen to this. When their beards burn, they help each other to extinguish the fire. It's true. It is the spirit of communal living and fellowship and solidarity that the Shona culture celebrates today. The way the transition came in Zimbabwe, some of us, and I'm sure a lot of political analysts, did not understand. It had an underpinning. The Shona people believe that fragmentation of society is detrimental to the realization of societal goals. It produces individuals who act in ways that are not commensurate with the celebrated ethos of the society. The essence is to view one's interest within the framework of societal aspirations. An individual is not analyzed outside his problems because his challenges are also the challenges of his society. And the society recognizes that each individual has his or her separate life outside the community. There's a Gikuyu proverb which supports that. It says, birds look for one another to land together, but fly individually. The African spirit of communality is maintained through the extension of hospitality to others. In almost every African country, we say we are hospitable. It's not just Ghana. It's an African thing. But these values provide a clue to understanding attitudes and philosophy of a people. Let me say something about African wisdom. I learned from my grandfather that I should always pray for wisdom first, because wisdom is wealth. It's wisdom that gives you wealth, not the other way around, not money. Wisdom comes from our elders like Ifremamu and those before him. This is expressed in our proverbs and wise sayings. And I want to quote just a few. On wisdom, a proverb says, wisdom is like a baobab tree. No one individual can embrace it. That's how we should look at wisdom. So no single person has all the wisdom. So we make a mistake in this business of the winner takes all, that we have all the wisdom. It's not possible. Second proverb, only a wise person can solve a difficult problem. Sometimes it takes very little to solve a problem. But you can find a number of people struggling to solve a little problem, then one wise person comes and resolves it. But the Somalis warn us that wisdom does not come overnight. You don't just sleep and wake up tomorrow, you are wise. You must learn. The Guineans, people from Guinea, also say knowledge without wisdom is like water in the sand. Knowledge without wisdom is like water in the sand. You can say, I've learned all the books in the world. I have read every chapter of the thesis written by St. Augustine in 2005. If you don't have wisdom, it's all like water in the sand. There is a Nigerian proverb which says, in the moment of crisis, the wise build bridges and the foolish build dams. A Kenyan proverb says, a man who uses force or insults is afraid of arguing. And is afraid of reasoning. If you are filled with pride, you will have no room for wisdom. And finally, nobody is born wise. Wisdom is learned. So on learning, there are some other proverbs. If you close your eyes to facts, you will learn through accidents. An Ethiopian one says, he who learns teaches. Another one says, ears that do not listen to advice accompany the head when it is chopped off. Those who don't listen to advice, the proverb says, advice is a stranger. If he is welcome, he stays for the night. If not, he leaves the same day. That's a proverb from Malagasy. On leadership, Africans have a lot of proverbs. When a king has good counselors, his reign is peaceful. That's deep, eh? The other one says, speak softly and carry a big stick. You will go far. I don't know why we scream so much. Maybe you want the message to go down faster, right? He who thinks he's leading and has no one following him is only taking a walk. This is a Ugandan proverb. The Sudanese say, a large chair does not make a king. You can create a large chair in your own house and sit on it, but you don't become a king, right? An Ethiopian proverb also says, because he's lost his reputation, he lost a kingdom. Reputation is very important. Once you lose it, you've lost everything. On unity and community, two proverbs are here. If you want to go quickly, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And when brothers fight to their death, a stranger inherits their father's estate. And that's what we do in Africa. All the places where there have been conflicts. And these are family conflicts. By the time they are awake, all their wealth is taken away. Count the countries one by one in Africa. So the best thing to encourage us is to continue to fight amongst ourselves. So we spend all our energies on issues that are not important. On money and wealth, we have some proverbs which will conclude my presentation on proverbs. Greed loses what it has gained. I think there's a proverb in Fanti that says, If you are in a hurry to amass wealth, you lose that in the shortest possible time. Mauritanians say, if he who loves money must labor. This was there before the Bible said, if you don't work, you can't eat. But the Tanzanians also say, make some money, but don't let money make you. The Yorubas say, the wealth which enslaves the owner is not wealth. Wealth should liberate you, but should not enslave you. Dogs do not actually prefer bones to eat. It is just that no one ever gives them meat. Lack of money is lack of friends. If you have money at your disposal, every dog and goat will claim it is related to you. Yorubas say, when you give, you get 10 times over. Giving is an African cultural value. Before all the religions came, giving. What you give, you get 10 times over. On patience, you have a proverb that says, at the bottom of patience, one finds heaven. And then, another interesting one, patience can cook a stone. If you have a patience, it's good. Oh, the Swahili people say, hurry has no blessings. And of course, one interesting African proverb, however long the night, the dawn will break. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what is implied in these proverbs or indigenous expressions is that they have been confirmed and integrated into religious doctrines, meaning that there is no point of disagreement over their moral teachings. I must say that it is because we have not been taught our proverbs and our wise sayings that we consider biblical teachings as antithetical to our traditional beliefs and principles. There should be no confusion. The African has a deep sense of religion. Now, there are other traditional African values we should be proud of. These include sense of hospitality, a show of unconditional readiness to share, open-handed and instinctive, sense of community, good human relations, respect for elders. It's a fundamental value that dictates that one must respect the aged and one's parents. Adult children are required to care for their parents in old age and not throw them into retirement homes. This is African. Honor thy father and thy mother. This was the underpinning. We had it before. Christians confirmed it. Then extended familyhood. I know some Ghanaians and Africans who run away from extended families because they are bothering them. I have a friend who went to Nigeria saying, oh, at home they worry me too much. But he has come back. Our own philosopher, Kwame Gyekye of the University of Ghana, in his book, Traditional African Values, observes that Africans have a remarkable love of humanity and a deep respect for the human family as a whole. Recognition of the value of humanity is intrinsically linked with recognition of the unity of the people, whether or not they are biologically related. And that's a fact. And that explains why the traditional African value system does not recognize individualism. African languages generally have no words for uncles, aunts, cousins, and nieces. All these are part of the family. The terms we use are foreign words. The family is one, but extended. And that's why when you are in trouble, what you call cousins, and aunts and so on come together. That's also why when you are naming a baby, they all come round because your baby is for the whole family. Today, go to some naming ceremonies in Ghana. Oh my God. There are some funny exercises that go on. And we forget entirely the traditional way of giving a name to a baby and letting the name influence the baby that has come up. We throw all these away. That's a subject for another time. Now, if what we have discussed are collective societal values, what about the individual values which combine to develop the human personality? Apart from domestic family values which one learns from the home, such as humility, obedience, respect for others, care for others, I joined the Young Pioneer Movement while in secondary school years ago. And we're taught some values that I wish our youth policy adopted. Listen to them. Love of country, discipline and obedience, honesty and morality, punctuality, protection of state property, reliability and secrecy, comradeship and forbearance, love of work, unaffectedness, selflessness, and striving to faultlessness. These were values we learned as young pioneers. So it enriched the values that we already had at home. Now, where is love of country? Whether the country collapses or not, we don't care. Talk about punctuality. And we know. Love of work, no. Shortcuts. Then, of course, in secondary school, I added on a few because my school's motto was either the first or with the first. So it enriched me better. Taught me that others have labored, and all that you have to do is to strive to add on to the gains. So you keep adding on in life. You don't stay where you are and be satisfied. Keep adding on to the values to attain excellence. Madam Apia President, ladies and gentlemen, at our workplaces, we learn that in order to succeed requires the highest standards of corporate behavior towards everyone we work with, the communities we touch, and the environment on which we have impact. Our values define how we do business and interact with our colleagues, partners, customers, and consumers. Our core values revolve around integrity, responsibility, respect, and pioneering. We tell the whole world that integrity is at the heart of our corporate social responsibility. So what happened to us as a people, as corporate members, as government officials, as politicians waiting on the sidelines to take over national governance, as private citizens, as a people with one destiny? On another platform, I would simply have said, let us confess our sins and go home to sin no more. But let me conclude by saying the following. We have not been honest with ourselves as a people. We have abandoned our God-given values and culture as a people placed on the continent of Africa. We have betrayed our founding fathers who shed blood fighting against foreign domination. We have betrayed our founding fathers, reflected in the words of our national anthem and our patriotic admonishments. Greed, selfishness, get rich quick, and know-it-all attitudes have run this nation into a crisis of identity. We do not care about the future we are preparing for our children anymore. We are desecrating and mortgaging the land and what our forefathers bequeathed to us. We pay lip service to the aspiration for freedom and justice. Some of our pastors have become specialists in putting fear into their devotees and are abusing their human rights with impunity in the name of God. Religion has become an enslaving tool instead of a liberating one. Patriotism as a value is dead. We hypocritically adorn our walls with values that we cannot protect and defend in our workplaces. We have blindly copied systems which divide us instead of nurturing our communalistic values. And in the process, people exploit the conflicts and differences for their personal benefit. So what is to be done? Few suggestions. It boils down to a change of mindset, a radical transformation which contains an inspiring message and a program of action to change our slavish mentality and to give our people hope, confidence, and happiness. Parents should enforce these traditional values at home. Educational policymakers and universities need to revise their notes and infuse history and African cultural values firmly in the curricula, not only in the first year, but throughout their studies. Religious leaders must be honest to tell their congregations that Christian and Islamic teachings reinforce traditional African values. Journalists and writers should research into our values and infuse them in their daily work. Political actors should see themselves as servants of the people who elect them to power, and they should be humble to apply the traditional wisdom in all their dealings with the people. Aspiration to win power should not be motivated by selfish agenda. Civil society should keep watch over our national heritage because that is all we have. Chief executives should be faithful to their company values, which should be founded on traditional cultural values. Ghana or Africa cannot compete with countries and nations which are firmly grounded in their own national ethos and identity. And Ghanaians should think African instead of the narrow paths we have been used to. All of us, we are all involved in the business of governance and nation building. I thank you.